Yeah. Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. On the occasion of World Health Day, we are privileged and we are honored to have with us Dr. Krishna Reddy Naramala, who is the President, Innovator and Regional Director for South Asia Access Health Institute, which is a global healthcare advisory board. Now we take this occasion to ask a few questions which are lingering in the minds of a lot of people in India, and because with his experience, the doctor will definitely share his thoughts on this. So welcome, Doctor. Sir, my first question is yesterday if you see with 1.15 lakh cases and more than 600 plus deaths are happening in India. So are we looking at, should we be scared what the so-called the second wave? Because when you look at the first wave, we have never seen so high numbers in India. So what exactly actually, as an expert, you advise people? So we should be really scared of this numbers?
If you, go back to the previous epidemics and the pandemics, especially the flu pandemic of 1919. So most of the pandemics go through these waves, the first wave, second wave, third wave. So it is nothing unusual. In fact, the whole world, every country is witnessing the phenomena of second wave or sometimes third wave. If you remember correctly, we had a small second wave in Delhi around Dasara, the festival season. And that was easily explainable because of the social behavior during that festival season. And as the first wave started declining despite the unlocking, because we were getting more and more unlocking, despite that the first wave declined. And then we are proceeding in the same unlocking. There is nothing like a sudden change in recent times. For us to explain the second surge at a very steep rate.
Right.
So the explanation that it is because of the changed social behavior that we are experiencing second wave, that may not be the correct answer for the second wave. The second difference that, if you notice carefully, is the doubling time is much shorter compared to the first wave. Okay. So what it means is the infectivity rate, what in epidemiological words we call it as R0, the reproduction rate of the virus, which for the first strain was around 2.3, maybe around 3.6 or 4 for say the UK variant, which is 70% more infectious. That means each individual, when I say reproduction rate of 4, they have a chance to infect 4 people. If I say 2, they have chance to infect 2 people.
Right.
So when you wear the mask, the same infectivity comes down to 1.2. The simple act of mask wearing will reduce your infectivity rate to infecting 1.2 persons for every person infected. So what it is telling the second wave is that there is a possibly a more infectious strain that is dominating in the current second wave. So that is one explanation for the surge that we are seeing. The second is now it is almost 1 year after the onset of COVID. And a lot of people, as per herd immunity sero surveys, were asymptomatic. If you look at the ratio, almost for every 40 people who were infected, as per the sero survey, only 1 was positive, as per the viral detection. That means 40 people were never known that they had a COVID. So before the second surge started, we had a total cases of about 11 million. That means virtually 440 million people in the country would have been already infected. Okay. So because we were wearing the mask, naturally the herd immunity requires only 30% of population to be infected for it to achieve the herd immunity. But the same virus strain, suppose if you were to remove the mask and if you were to get away from the social distancing, because for that 2.3 or not value, you require 65% of the population to be infected.
Okay.
So this simple change in the behavior will make additional 35% of the population, that means 420 million people, vulnerable for second infection.
Okay.
Okay. So these are some of the factors which explain the surge.
And one more thing, which is you made a very interesting point regarding the second wave. But the thing is, like, a lot of people have taken these precautions of wearing masks and maintaining social distancing during the first 1 year. But I was told by many people, my friends and things, how do we explain this? The people who were not contacted COVID, and unfortunately, a lot of people got vaccinated in the first phase. And unfortunately, what I've been told is, like, most of the people after getting vaccinated, they tested positive. So how do you explain this phenomenon? So is it just a coincidence, or it's like they got exposed to?
So one is the vaccine, for it to be fully effective, it has to be 2 weeks after the second dose of the vaccine.
Right.
So that means you are still vulnerable after the first dose.
Right.
So that is one explanation why people can still get infected. The second is the vaccine does not prevent infection. If you look at carefully the vaccine data, the end point of vaccine efficacy is related to people developing illness.
Right.
That means after infection, people developing illness. Again, some vaccines used moderate illness as the end point. Does it prevent moderate illness? Does it prevent serious illness? Does it prevent mild illness? Or does it prevent any infection? So most of the vaccines tested only against the illness, not against the infection.
Okay.
So you may still get infection but may not develop illness.
Okay.
Like what we saw in the first wave also, 40 people got infected but only 1% developed illness.
Okay, so you mean to say that people went to hospitals and clinics to get vaccinated, they got exposed, and that might be one of the reasons testing positive, the numbers?
But the numbers, if you look at, I think we are already 80 million vaccinated.
Right.
Very few cases are, we see anecdotal reports of people getting infected or testing positive after the first dose 2 weeks later. That is fully expected.
Okay.
I think that is nothing surprising. In terms
of COVID cases, but a lot of people are on roads attending meetings and everything. So how do you explain this? Actually, what exactly is happening? Because in Maharashtra you don't have elections, you don't have people coming on roads or rallies or anything. But at the same time, in Bengal, Assam and Tamil Nadu, a lot of people in Kerala are coming, but still the cases compared to Maharashtra are less at this point of time.
Yeah, in the absence of very sound epidemiological data, the surveillance data, I can give certain speculative answers. May not be scientific, but as speculative answers based on limited information I have access to. So when we look at the genomic surveillance data of the ongoing surge, 91% you are finding B117, which is the UK variant. Okay. Having said that, then how does this UK variant come into the country? That means there has to be international travel.
Right.
And which states received the maximum international travel? So naturally the Mumbai airport will be the maximum international travel from UK. The second community, usually the Punjab community, also a lot of travel from UK to Punjab.
Okay.
So one speculation I have based on if I have to link the genomic surveillance information and the travel history, the trend of international travel, that is one likely. The second is, suppose if we still haven't done enough genomic surveillance and there is a de novo new method that arose in Maharashtra, because in Punjab we are clear, because 90% it is UK variant and we know the link of the travel history. In Maharashtra we still don't have the clarity as far as the genomic data is concerned. And there is a mention of double mutant. that has come, which unique to the Indian but not reported from other countries. Whether that mutant arose in Maharashtra and it is spreading in Maharashtra before it's, so is it the epicenter? Okay. Because if Maharashtra had got a new mutant which is spreading like a wildfire before it spreads to other states, so this is the second explanation why this is there. Yeah, it is like, I mean, it's like a flood. Okay, the flood has to arise somewhere and it has to slowly spread somewhere. Similarly, earthquake. Its vibrations have to be felt over a period of time.
And Doctor, I think this second wave or third wave, these waves will keep on continuing. So, what exactly the waves being continued? What exactly you suggest, like COVID appropriate behavior, whether it's a second wave, third wave, or fourth wave? How people should take care of themselves? And
one is the so-called COVID appropriate behavior is also applicable to any harm that you can get from respiratory pathogens.
Okay.
So my own answer to that is the face mask should become a new public health norm to prevent respiratory infections, to prevent lung diseases from pollution.
Okay.
Having said that, the COVID appropriate behavior should be continued until the WHO declares that the pandemic in the world is over. So that is a simple message that please continue this appropriate behavior until the pandemic is declared as over, irrespective of whether you are vaccinated, irrespective of whether you had a COVID earlier. This has to be continued.
Okay.
If you are vaccinated, you may not get illness, but you are still at risk of transmitting infection which you can get to your elders in the family. Just because you are vaccinated, suddenly you start removing the mask and you have infection, because see, the antibodies are in the blood. The antibodies are not in the mucosal membranes, where the virus proliferates in the mucosal membranes. So people may still carry the virus without it getting inside, because of your antibodies. And that's the reason also you might be reading that a nasal vaccine is being tested, because then you have IgA antibodies, which will prevent actual proliferation in the mucosa. So, my answer is we have to continue the COVID appropriate behavior until WHO declares that the pandemic is over.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Krishnaredi Nandamalagaru. And thank you for watching Reality, which always brings the truth and facts news to us. Thank you.
Okay.